So the idea, I guess it came to me, I was watching the 2020 episode, and the episode was about, there was a mother's son who was murdered because of his sexual orientation, and he had him cremated. This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded. He had him cremated and took his ashes and buried him like in a tree, like at the roots of a tree. And so that way it was kind of like every time she would go and like water the tree and be with it, it was like being with him. And so that's what gave me the idea. I was like, man, what if we did like a garden where each plant was dedicated to a person that we've harmed, the person that we've harmed, and then you could even have like a plant with their name. And then I was thinking, I was like, well, that might be like kind of weird for some people. It could be taken out of context. So I was like, well, what else could we do? Because it's real symbolic. And so that's where the idea to basically bury your character defects came from. So the idea is I'm making a curriculum for it. It's a 5-phase process, and like how AA has like 12 steps and stuff. It's a 5-phase process where in the first phase we're going to teach the class what a timeline is and how to create one. So a timeline, you break it down from like traumatic events, memories, experiences, influences from 0 to 1 or 0 to 5. You break it up in increments, and then from there, phase 2 is where you'll analyze that and you'll pull from those experiences and those events your character defects, like your flaws. So once you have that, I'm going to teach them this thing called the law of replacement. And so it's basically replacing something with something else. So a negative with a positive. So a defect with a character attribute. So once you've identified defects, like I always go like anger is an easy defect to talk about. The opposite of anger through the law of replacement is peacefulness. So the idea now that we've got a garden, I'm working in the kitchen, so I'll be collecting compost and making, gardening soil. So whenever the class comes, we'll have made a timeline, identified our defects, and you'll take anger and you'll write it down on a piece of paper, and they're going to shred it up and bury it in the soil and cover it with the seed, seed and more compost. And so they're going to bury their anger, and they're going to grow through the law of replacement a plant dedicated to peacefulness. So the inverse of that. And so now, as they're taking care of that plant and caring for it and nurturing it, they're going to be cultivating that idea, that attribute internally as well. And then through the curriculum, there's going to be activities to basically make you go practice that attribute and, apply it in daily life. And they're going to learn gardening. And then at the end, we're going to donate all the produce. So it'll be a full complete cycle. So put negativity in, grow positivity out. And it'll teach them like coping mechanisms too, because gardening is a real therapeutical activity. So it's going to cover ways to cope with your defects, ways to replace them. It's all of the above. So that's compassionate composting.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Beautiful. Okay, and then talk about how you talk about your experience with like preparing it, getting the signatures, the ARC, like up until it getting approved.
Yeah. All right. So after I had the idea and I decided that I wanted to try to make it a reality. I was in a self-help group called Anti-Recidivism Coalition, and they have these big graduations. And so every time there's a graduation, each class, there's 3 of them, they elect a speaker, a class speaker to represent the group. So I wrote up a speech because in my mind, I remembered that the last speakers, whenever you go to that graduation, the warden and assistant warden and captain and all the big wigs are there. So whenever you speak, I remember that from the last graduation, they had like a special moment. The speakers had a special moment with those important people where they shook hands, they congratulated them like, well said, well, good speech, blah, blah, blah. So I remembered that, and I was like, okay, if I can get this group drafted up, get this proposal ready, whenever I go give that speech, if I get the speech, then that means that I'll have that moment with them, and I think it'll give my proposal more weight because I'll have just got done with doing a powerful speech. They'll have heard positive things from me, and it won't just be, some random inmate. I felt like it gave me a leg up, and it definitely did. So you had 60 seconds remaining. So yeah, the class, I wrote a powerful speech, and the class elected me speaker. So that was like step 1. And then so we went to graduation, and it was crazy. My group was the first one to do it, so I had to get up there first and break the ice, and it went really, really well. And then so afterwards, I had the proposal printed. I had 3 of them printed out, and I had them in these clear poly envelopes. They were like, it looked way more professional than just some manila envelopes. So I gave it to the warden, the assistant warden, and the captain, and it was really well received. Like there was no pushback or resistance. Like everyone was just super open to it, especially the captain. It was cool because I told her that I put my heart and soul into it, and if she'll just give it a moment to read over it, that I think she'll fall in love with it too. And she told me that she thinks she already is, and I was like, yeah, all right, cool. This is probably going to happen. And so then after that, she told me to come back. It was like 3 or 4 days after that. She told me a specific day to come follow back up. So I did, and that's when she told me that she needed a project plan, because the proposal was the idea of the group. And so now she said she needed a project plan, which was just a real summarized list of materials that I needed, like what exactly I needed to make the group happen. So I wrote that up, and I wasn't asking for hardly anything because everything is going to be recycled, from the compost to I talked to the masonry guys, the compost bin, all the wood, all the lumber they already have, so that's free of cost. The labor is going to be free because it's going to be an assignment to the students. The other stuff, seeds, all that can be sent in from Amazon. They already have shovels. So all I was really asking for was the location, the approval, and access to their water. So I gave that to her, and that was right before Thanksgiving a little bit. And she told me that the next day she would take it to a meeting to get it approved, and that was the last I heard from her until today. So I've been stressing. I've been in suspense since, and today I got some news.
Today it got approved?
Yeah, I got some big news. So, yeah. Oh, we have just like how the AA has a serenity prayer. My grandma had told me this poem when I was real young, and I liked it back then, but it never really took root until recently. Now it makes so much sense, like especially being in prison, you know. But it says, "Your mind is a garden, your thoughts are the seeds. You can grow flowers or you can grow weeds," and that like really kind of sums up the group to me in a way. So I put that on the proposal, but also on the handbook. It's going to say, there'll be the cover page, and then when you flip it over, it'll have that poem, because that's going to be like our group's motto in a way, or like our saying or poem.
Your mantra.
Yeah, exactly. This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded. Told the masonry guy today, so he said he would give her a call, and I'm going to follow back up with him next week.
I'm so proud of you.